Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend Jim Stamm, fresh back from the last baseball game of the year at PNC Park. How are you? How was your experience, brother?
Yeah, listen, I literally just got back like 15 minutes ago, grabbed a nice big old drink and sat down with you and our guest today, by the way. And no, it was cool though. They lost. That wasn't cool. I ended up with a losing record at PNC Park this year. Just like the Pirates will have a losing record. But you know what? Some cool things happen. Let's get our guest introduced, and then maybe I will share a thing or two about today.
Yep. So returning to the show, if you don't know him, you probably haven't been watching long. James Littleton, my good friend from West Virginia. I promised I'm not going to rub in what Pitt did to his beloved Mountaineers.
No, we will not. We will not even mention that West Virginia lost to Pitt and blew.
Not at all, because I mean it was
blew a late lead. We won't even mention it.
Yeah, I mean no way. I mean, I would have thought James had prepared himself mentally for it by watching Bednar do the same thing all year long, but you know it's okay. It's okay. That game's over. Welcome back, James.
Trust the climb. Man, we're trusting climbs everywhere. West Virginia, Pirates, geez.
Oh man.
It's gonna be a good one. Let's see. Ryan Lytle is here. I saw he just got his Paul Skeens jersey from Yins the other day in the mail. So good for you, Ryan. And yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about Rowdy Tellez. I think everybody shared an opinion on it. I wrote a piece on it. I'm sure a lot of people already shared just about everything there is, but I think there's some angles to this story that people haven't really thought about. You know, I think a lot of people just jumped right to how cheap they are, and that was the story, and I get it. It was a little bit deeper than that to me. This was literally the only time that you could have cut Rowdy Tellez, and it would have been a national story of embarrassment. Like, it's the only decision that you could have possibly made that would have caused an uproar. They could have benched him the rest of the year. This isn't a story. They could have cut him 10 at bats ago. This isn't a story. They could, I mean, they could have just let him play and give him the $200,000 too, of course, and it's not a story. They could have cut him September 1st. I mean, we've been out of the playoff picture for quite some time, Jim. What do you think they were thinking? Who do you blame? What were your takeaways here?
Well, I think like for me, the first thing that I tried to do with this was like take the player out of it, right? Like make it just player X, because to focus on whether they did this particular player wrong or dirty or however you want to say it, like I just wanted to look at it from like a kind of a, you know, a basic, is this okay to do with players? And I think like, yeah, it's like if you could have just picked a better time to do it or not do anything with him, then this is not a thing, right? But the Pirates are easy marks too, because they've done this to themselves over the years a little bit with this reputation, right? So people are very, very willing and eager, and some of it is deserved, to say, here they go again. Cheapo Pirates, Bob Nutting stomped down to Ben Sherrington's office, or up, or wherever Ben Sherrington's office. Maybe it's in the basement. Maybe that's where it needs to be. But just
maybe maybe it's somewhere altogether not Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, that's true too. He sent a fax then. Let's just put it that way. But no, like, so it was just like, of all the timing you could pick, you picked that.
Right.
And then they thought nobody would notice. And you know what? Sometimes you do things and people notice. And then it kind of blew up outside of sports even.
Yeah, so but you are what you are when you're doing things when you think nobody's looking. You know, and that's the thing. They think nobody's looking. And James, that's where I want to go with it, because we've got Ethan Houlihan here. There aren't people doing what he's doing in every market in baseball. And most of these contract escalators, they're not public knowledge. They're not just out there. Like, he's digging up some of those, like, I'm not saying these ones weren't, but that's something that people automatically look for and pull out. That's just because that's how Johnny on the spot he was with it, that boom, there it is. And everybody, and he was just trying to figure out some other thing a couple weeks ago. And that's why it was really fresh in people's memory. So we got caught because they weren't paying attention to how much we pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that Ethan got some of his work on some big shows like Pat McAfee and stuff like that, and got the credit eventually that he deserves. I mean, he does really good work with that. With the whole Rowdy thing, I mean, stuff like that's going to get found out, but I think I'm in the minority that, it doesn't really bother me so much. I mean, I've never been somebody who's on the player's side completely when it comes to slights, when they get slighted like this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of players out there that are robbing teams of money hand over fist, like Anthony Rendon, that when something happens to a player, I really don't have a whole lot of sympathy. But yeah, the timing is a little suspect. I mean, it's really, I feel bad for Rowdy. I mean, he's only $2 million richer this year instead of 2.2. I mean, but I just, for the reasons that were given, it's just,
it was fishy, right? It
real
felt
fishy.
Dirty. I think the worst part about it is how easily avoidable it was to me. The decision itself, I don't think anybody could really tell you it's wrong. It's not. Like, but if you're one of those people that thinks that the Pirates are going to go, gee willikers, did Paul Skeens overperform this year? We ought to give him more than we're required to pay. I think you might want to get checked. I'm just saying. I don't think they're that kind of present of mind. I think they might try to extend him, but I also think they might just be happy to let him make $700K.
Let's I got a couple things. So do we want to take our break sooner and we'll just finish it up on the other end of it?
We'll take our break and you can organize your anger into one thought and we'll come back. 30 seconds, everybody, right back.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum. Jim's got some things to say. I'm going to let him say them, but there's some things in the chat too, so let's make sure we circle back to them. Get it up first, brother.
Okay. So first thing I would say about this is, I think there's a leash given, longer leash given to teams that win, right? Like if you're winning and you do this kind of stuff, you're almost kind of like applauded for it, that you're, hey, these are business decisions. We're cold, calculated, but we're win. I mean, the Patriots did it for how long in the NFL? Trade guys, don't play them. If they don't want to, move them out when they're going to get contracts, and so on and so forth. And people there said, man, that's a machine, right? So I think that's part of it. The Pirates don't win and they're cheap. There's that. Moving past that, I reached out to 3 former players who I will not name, just to get their response, because I wanted to see what players thought of it in the clubhouse. How does that go over? And all 3 of them responded, which told me something right there.
Yeah,
which was okay. Because sometimes, hey, we all, Gary, we we send things out and sometimes you don't get responses, and that's okay, right? They're
Sure.
busy or they don't want to answer or whatever. So one guy just texted back one word, and it was in all caps, and it was pissed. You know, how they view that from other, when that stuff is done to what I would say is you kind of, they're family, right? They're your brothers, right?
He's a clubhouse guy too. So
yeah. Okay. And then so another one reached back and said, the season's almost done, so it's probably going to be a moot point in a few weeks. But yes, it's just another example of how this team functions. So there was that, and then there was another one that said, that being said, how funds are being allocated or not is a whole other debate that makes this just seem like a cheap move to the fans and the players. So I think what it does is, from what I gathered from that, was just like, other than they already don't have a good reputation, and the players file it away in their memory banks, whether it has any repercussions later on or if it makes them disgruntled to be there, I don't know. Those are the responses I got. None were all that positive.
Yeah.
So,
and you saw Al Oliver too, you know, pretty publicly on Twitter. You know, I mean,
CSN retweeted about it. So yeah, I think that's the angle I wanted to get at. Because if the players didn't care, maybe I wouldn't even care either. But you know, there is some of that I think is residual.
Right, and like backing up what James was saying earlier, you know, Dave White says if anything, Rowdy owes them a refund. You know, so and James, I know you kind of are along that line too. You know, he didn't perform this year. Ryan Lytle says maybe he wouldn't have been DFA'd if he hit better than 119 in September. He's right. I mean, like, and if you really want evidence, they have Jason DeLay sitting around, right? And Grandal is still here. So, I mean, and he's been hitting. So, I mean, like, they did keep him around. I don't believe it's just for Paul Skeens. They popped that cherry a couple weeks ago with Bart. So, I mean, like, I'm not worried about that either. I mean, they definitely did probably have some performance things here. The thing is, again, 5 days earlier, this isn't a story.
Yeah.
Or you just go, I don't need to see Joshua Palacios. Let me go ahead and let him ride the pine. You know, like,
I think all the extra attention it got, right when they're going into a critical off season, that's the part like of the scab that I would probably not want to pick out right now. Because they, like, if you're hoping that they can go out and fill a couple spots, it'd be like, you know, when a salesman walks up to you at a store you're in, right? Yeah. And before they even say anything, you're like, oh man, oh geez, here comes this dude. He's going to try to sell me something. Well, you know what I mean? Like, and if you see the Pirates calling on the caller ID, are you like, oh God, we're going to have to pick this up? I don't know. But it's just something I would rather avoid going into what is obviously a massively critical off season for them.
Yeah, I mean, largely, James. I mean, that ship has sailed, right? Teams know what the Pirates do. Players know what the Pirates do. They offer more money, you get Aroldis Chapman. You don't offer more money, you don't get Aroldis Chapman.
I was just going to say, I just read an article by this great writer. They just talked about that if the Pirates offer more money, that player's probably going to take it. They paid more for Chapman than anybody else offered. I mean, they may have to overpay a little bit more to overcome that. I don't think players will be looking for incentives from the Pirates.
Yeah.
Especially the Division Series MVP they tried to sneak in there.
Well, those, according to Ethan Houlihan, are boilerplate. They put those in all contracts, apparently. But the escalators that Rowdy got there for the plate appearances, that's not traditional. There's only two players that have that.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably different, or players that are looking to have a comeback season that maybe try to boost it a little bit with hitting some of those escalators like that. But I mean,
you're hoping that they're not trying to sign players like that this time, right? I mean, like,
yeah.
Not that it doesn't matter. It's like it's damage for the sake of damage. Like it's penny wise and dollar foolish. That's what this team is.
At that position, what else are they going to look at other than maybe moving Reynolds? I mean, what else is out there that is going to be any better than Rowdy?
That's a whole different discussion. But
I know that's
it's not one that I care to have right now either. Because in all sincerity, I have no idea what they're going to do there. And like, let's just be blunt. It doesn't matter if they paid Rowdy an extra $4 million on the way out. Pete Alonso is not looking twice.
Right.
So
add that to the list of question marks for this team next season, and we'll get to those eventually because there's plenty of them. I think at the end of the day is, for me, does it really do much damage? Probably not. Was it totally avoidable in several different capacities? Yes. And then they still find a way to doink it up. So just, life of a Pirates fan in many, many ways.
Distasteful. I think that's kind of what happens with them. They do something completely normal. Gregory Polanco a few years ago, he had been around long enough that he deserved to not be publicly DFA'd, asked to play for 3 or 4 days beyond that, with all these questions surrounding. He had been on playoff teams here in Pittsburgh. You can debate whether he was part of the solution or part of the problem or part of the reason they didn't get far enough or whatever. And you can make your giraffe gif all you like. But that was the guy that was pretty important during the second half of that run. And they treated him like nothing on the way out. And we all should have known right then and there that they didn't give a crap about a lot of those guys. That to me hurt me as a Pirates fan. He meant something to me. He had been around long enough that to me he deserved more reverence than that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, look, like, fans are probably reasonable. If Rowdy was due a $3.5 million bonus, if he hit that mark, being a Pirates fan, you're going to look at that and say, well, okay, they're not going to spend a lot to begin with. I want to keep that money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, but $200K is like, I'm not totally.
They'll blow that in a month just picking up and dropping waiver claims.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
It's not nothing, but it's kind of nothing.
Yeah.
And that is why, like, why go out of your way to make a problem for yourself out of something that's probably considered small potatoes.
But is it even $200K that they're saving? Because and Ethan might correct me, but they still have to pay Palacios and Peguero the prorated portion of the minimum, and so that knocks it down. I think around $50K that they're saving.
Sure.
For these,
I think it's all
really 150.
I think it's all nickel and dime for the team. To me, it's just this one player. They let him get to the precipice of something achievable and then pulled the rug out from under him. There's no way to look at that besides it's cruel.
Yeah.
Whether it's intentional or not, it's cruel to do that to somebody. You don't do that. It's like, sending the Jelly of the Month Club to Clark Griswold. That's not what you do. And that's not how you treat people professionally. That's all.
I think in Pittsburgh, that strikes a chord more than some other cities too, when you screw somebody or it looks like you did.
Yeah, I know. It's just the type of stuff that you don't want them to do. And like Ryan Lytle, I think, asked a little bit earlier. He got a notification from ESPN. He asked if it was really true that Bob Nutting didn't have anything to do with it. There it is. Finally, was it all GMBC? Well, as with most of those reports, I mean, this is one of those ones where like something else will come out later and then everyone will go, see, Dayon lied. But like Dayon's got a source telling him that Bob Nutting didn't know about it. Now, he's not saying who that source is, but usually when he's that confident, I take a pretty good guess who the source is. Now, is he telling the truth? I don't know. Damon seems to believe him. But like,
yeah,
who knows, man?
these are the things that you're gonna like. All these kinds of things, right? You're gonna get conflicting stuff. Who knows? Who cares? Bottom line is, it's the Pirates. It's their brand. Someone was responsible for it.
Now, Dennis says, he's glad it's going national and not that the embarrassment will matter. Well, it kind of is the only thing that really ever matters to Bob Nutting. That's what gets him going. 2019, the embarrassment is the reason that he fired Neil Huntington and Clint Hurdle and everybody, because he was embarrassed. They didn't do what they said they were going to do, and he was tired of getting embarrassed. I mean, that's the truth. He ate $17 million to do it.
A lot of times with either poorly run businesses or poorly run operations in general, sometimes that is the final thing that, when it's, chronic mismanagement or whatever, is that it comes out that, hey, it's this bad and it's this embarrassing, and then things happen. That is kind of what happened in 2019, by the way, like Gary said.
I mean, damn, let's just do this. Call your shot this week, brought to you as always by our friends at ShopYins.com. Check out all their Yinsery stuff over there. Stuff with our faces on it, Jim.
Yeah.
I've seen our friend James walk around baseball games with it before. It's the only way I knew who he was.
Yep, he's unrecognizable any other way.
I couldn't pick him out in a crowd. No other way. It comes from our friend Clay McNerney. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. It's a good question, and it's really right along the lines of what we're talking about. If Nutting clears out all of baseball ops, is there any faith that he'll make a better hiring decision this time? He asks not to bash him. He's just trying to illustrate, that leaders don't always make good hiring decisions. So baseball ops, just to be clear with the audience, I'm pretty sure Clay knows, is everybody under Travis Williams. So it's basically there's Bob Nutting, Travis Williams, and everybody under him, including Ben Cherington, would be fired. Okay, within reason. They're not going to go down into the organization and start firing a third base coach in Indianapolis. Not yet. That would be like the next general manager's job to do. But could they really and truly find somebody better? Well, I would hope so. Travis Williams reportedly just took the list basically that was recommended by the search group they had. I mean, the guy I wanted, got hired in Milwaukee. So like,
well, that didn't work out.
We'll get to that later. The guy I wanted was Arnold, and I thought he was the best. And I also was interested in Kim Ng. I don't even know how to say her name.
I don't either.
But she was an up-and-comer too, and the Marlins ended up giving her a chance instead. But that was another name that was on the block there that a lot of us were talking about. Ben Cherington was another name. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I was as vehemently against it as everyone else was. I actually thought he had some experience that probably would have played pretty well here. And I thought he wanted to try to run Boston like a small market team. And the ownership changed their minds about the type of team they wanted to put on the field a few times on him. So it kind of changed a little bit of how his path there was. I have no faith in Bob Nutting to do anything. So I don't have faith in him to do much of anything. That's why I always focus on baseball needing to change. James, maybe you're less jaded than me. I doubt it.
No, I wouldn't trust him to get me a Subway or a sub at Subway and get my order right. I wouldn't trust him for anything. He's proven, I think, fairly well himself over the years that he can't be trusted to make the right move at the right time.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, I would have hoped that like that's the reason you hire a search firm, right? Is that they can kind of cobble things together for you and say, these are your best options. Just do this. I don't know how that all shakes out at the end. If they're all close, if you got, maybe it came down to, you know, this
I have every
situation.
belief that Travis Williams is a capable executive. And I don't and note that I'm not even speaking of the industry. I have no doubt that Travis Williams is a capable executive. I bet I could put him in a bank and he'd do fine. I bet I could put him back with the Penguins with their established leadership and he would do fine. I bet I could put him with the Steelers and he'd function somehow, somewhere in their system and do just fine. But here, where you hire a hockey guy and ask him to immediately make a gigantic decision about the future of your baseball team for the next 5 years. I'm not saying that Bob didn't personally hire the GM, but Travis Williams was brought in to kind of close that deal. He was the first hire, right? I'd like to think he's learned something about baseball over the years, So maybe, and I can tell you for damn sure, just from the limited knowledge I do have, if he has any say at all in who gets hired next time, should they move on from Ben Cherington, he will be absolutely positive it is somebody that wants to engage and communicate with his half of the business. Because they do not feel like they have that set up right now. I'm just telling you.
Some of the words I've heard when it comes to Ben Cherington are aloof, and maybe some things are beneath him. So I'll just leave it at that. And I think that ties into it.
An uber stubbornly loyal, James. Right? Uber stubbornly loyal, right? Because I kind of can't understand how you would try to run back a team that's going to be built, let's say 80% is probably generous, of what you just ended the season with.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fair to say. This team will probably be 80% of what you just watched today at PNC Park, Jim. And you're going to be expecting those kids to grow, and you're going to be expecting guys to get better, and leashes to be off of certain starting pitchers. But I don't know how you as a GM return that and don't change something with the coaching, because you have to be saying to the fans, if you're telling us it's going to get better, you have to show us how it's going to get better. You had an entire 5 years with these coaches to try to make it better. It didn't get better. Like, you got better because you drafted better players and attrition took place. You didn't get better because they made a lot of people better. Like, that to me would be a slap in the face to just return the same coaching staff next year. I worry about that a lot more than the GM. I haven't been happy with all of his decisions, but to me, this is a mercy killing that every GM gets. You get one sacrificial lamb coach to get rid of to extend your timeline a little bit.
Well, someone goes before you go, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just traditionally, that's the way I think. Now, if this team isn't getting along at the top, or somebody's really jacked that they just got turned into a laughing stock because of when somebody was cut, it won't matter who said to do it. It'll only matter that it happened. And I could see him making a decision like that.
Go ahead, James. Go ahead.
Yeah, somebody's head's going to roll. I mean, I've got a pretty good idea of who I want to see go first. It might rhyme with Andy Haynes.
I'm fine with that. If all they did is Andy Haynes, is that enough for you? I mean, really, is that enough for you?
No, not enough. I just look at the players this year that came back from last season. I just don't see a step forward for. I was trying to think today who has made a big improvement from last season, a young player, and I really could not think of a single one right off the top of my head. I mean, Sawinski, no. I mean, maybe Nick G.
Nick Gonzalez has done well, I think.
But I mean, if sitting down and thinking, I mean, Cruz was hurt last year, so I mean, what would he have done last year if he hadn't been hurt? So
probably what he did this year. So,
I mean, I'm happy. I mean, 2020. I mean, and 2020. I mean, you got to throw the errors in there too. I mean, so we got the 2020 club. But I mean, I just couldn't think of who made a big improvement other than maybe Nick G.
On the offensive side,
on the offensive side, correct.
Right.
I mean, and that's probably the most damning thing, Jim. I mean, like, you expect kids to take a while. Like, what we're seeing with Jared Triolo, I think, is probably a lot more normal of a progression than I think you tend to see from rookies. You know, they come up, they struggle. If they get opportunity, they keep getting opportunity. They get chances. Every once in a while, they'll kind of start grabbing it. He's done some things here towards the end of the year to kind of make you feel like he's progressed at least. I'm not saying that he's earned a starting role next year, but he's a better player today than he was at the beginning of the season. I can honestly say that.
Yeah.
I think Nick Gonzalez, I can say, is a better player now than he was at the beginning of the season. I think that's fair to say. The problem is you can't have gigantic step backs or complete ghosting of, you know, guys like Ke'Bryan Hayes and guys like Henry Davis. If Henry Davis came up here and struggled like I just described Jared Triolo struggling, this is a productive season. But that's not what happened. He struggled mightily. He doesn't have a foothold up here. He's starting from scratch again next year. You know, that's the kind of no progress that I think frustrates all of us.
Well, they never seem to have any good surprises, I think is how I would put it. You know, like, we're going to talk about it when we get to the Brewers, right? Yeah. Just guys that, like, whatever they are, you've pulled a little bit more out of them. And, you know, you do that in 2 or 3 spots and it starts to add up. They just never seem to have any of those pleasant surprises other than, you know, hey, the Joey Bart thing, but that was, you know, I mean, the Giants gave up on him. We picked him up almost out of desperation with some of the stuff going on.
If we really want to play that game, I could. Dennis Santana, you know, I think was a really pleasant surprise.
Offensively is definitely where I'm talking, though. It's like offensively where there just never seems to be any. And I think, to me, that's one of those things where, man, you can't luck into one of those on that side of the ball.
Right. I'll tell you what, let's take a break. Let's come back. We've teased it enough. It's time to talk a little bit about how the Brewers are so damn much better than everyone else in the NL Central. Because it ain't money.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right. Welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. Do get the app. It is free. All the content is free. It's good stuff still. Check it out. They're writing about much more pleasant things like our 3-0 Pittsburgh Steelers and our 4-0 Pitt Panthers and our
James, they're undefeated, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it happened.
Carry on.
You can thank Neil Brown.
But we want to no. I mean, he's your Matt Canada.
He's worse.
And just because it's awesome, because you happen to be a fan of the Steelers, you also had Matt Canada and Andy Haynes. I actually respect the hell out of West Virginia fans now that I'm thinking about it.
Can we throw a Penguin coach in there?
Oh, geez. Who was the one
Or-
last year that everyone wanted fired that sucked?
The
real
power
bad?
play, the coordinator?
Yeah. Can't remember his name. He's
there-
the guy
are
that
there-
came back.
Was it Rarden or Rorden or
Reardon, Todd Reardon. Yeah. All right. So before we get into our Brewers comp, Dave Pratt says Cruz has improved offensively, not huge, but measurable. Yes, he has. He's hitting lefties much better.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
And I think he's found a good balance between power and contact. He's definitely got to clean up what he does on the bases. I really liked the way he was using his speed later on in the season to steal bases. It seemed like he was doing it with the snap of the fingers. And I think he's taken to center field. I know, like, you know, he still has some balls like bounce off his glove and everything, but like, you got to understand, like, that takes time, man. Like, that takes time to figure out where your glove needs to be and the proper technique to slide, or if you should slide, or when you should dive, or when it's a bad idea to dive, or what base to throw to in a situation. And
Simple
gonna
as
have to just play.
reading the ball off the bat, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's had fun out there. And I think he's realizing that it could be a fun position, then it takes some pressure off of him. So I'll give him credit for that. I don't know if I'd have done it right then. They did. I'll actually give him credit for that. I think it's been a good move overall.
All I know is he caught a ball today that these people said the StatCast said was the 30% probability of being caught, and he didn't even look like he broke a sweat getting to it. So,
He'll
hey,
figure it out. He'll figure it out.
I'll take it. I think that was good progress for him. The Brewers, though, 91-68 so far. They've run away with the NL Central. It wasn't even close. All they did to get here was go ahead and trade their absolute stud, top of the line, Cy Young contender, starting pitcher, you know, out of their team. And another guy who had been okay, just stepped right on in and became a superstar stud starting pitcher, Freddie Peralta. And they brought up some rookies who kind of did great, and their bullpen, Devin Williams got injured for most of the year. Didn't even miss him. Bryce Wilson was there. What the hell? I mean, it just kind of seems to always happen. Christian Yelich hurt for the season. So what? Christian Yelich is the only reason their payroll is really considerably higher than Pittsburgh's at all. They're probably going to lose Willie Adames this offseason. And you know what? It ain't going to matter. Because they're just going to move one of those other young kids over there like Bryce Terang or Ortiz. Bryce Terang and his plus 23 defensive runs saved this year, like at second base. I mean, like
that's crazy, by the
way. They signed a big money contract in Rhys Hoskins, and honestly, he underperforms it. He's not going to opt out of it most likely next year. They're kind of going to get stuck with him. They probably don't want him. He can't play first base. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it ain't like they do everything perfect, but everything works.
I think the irony in all this is that I don't even know that the Brewers knew what they were when the season started. It seemed to me they were kind of like in that gray area. Where they had lost some guys, made a few signings. Like, it didn't look. I'm shocked that they are where they're at.
Mark Graham says Brewers bullpen best save percentage in MLB this year, and that is again with an injured Devin Williams.
Yeah, it's an incredible job. Yeah, you know, it's funny. You look at the Brewers and you don't think they maybe should be that good, but they've been incredibly consistent this year. You know, and the things that they've done to be consistent is what Mark just said about the bullpen. They've got a winning record in one-run games. They have a great record in blowout games. They beat everybody in the division more than they lost to them. You know, just take care of some of the things that I feel like if you can do those things, give yourself a chance to be a good ball club. Now my concern is that the Pirates look at the Brewers and say, well, why can't we just do that next year? And anything that makes them take their foot off the gas pedal even a millimeter worries me, because I already know not much is coming. So that worries me. Anyways.
I mean, I think it's shrewd trades. I think they're smart at trades. I'm going to name one that they made really recently, and it was part of a 3-way deal to get William Contreras. Okay. Now, William Contreras was not a star when they got him. Just wasn't. They ended up trading as in part of this whole deal Estuary Ruiz, an outfielder. He was their number 8 ranked prospect at the time. That's the only player they moved out. Everyone else came from elsewhere in this deal between the A's and the Braves. Somehow, they wound up with William Contreras. It's the only guy they got out of the whole thing. That they traded a number 8 ranked prospect for William Contreras, all-star starting catcher, absolutely crushing major league pitching. Cornerstone, under control for 4 or 5 years. I mean, now, if you hope Joey Bart turns into that and you want to claim Ben Cherington did the same thing with a waiver claim, okay, I guess he's got him beat. He may, if Andy Rodriguez turns out, you could say that Ben Cherington kind of pulled off something similar like this by getting into bed in a 3-way trade, roping the Mets into that deal to kind of add him onto the package for the guys they sent out. But that was a smart move, man. It replenished
really
a room that was emptying for them right at the wrong time.
Well, they traded Ruiz for Contreras, but they got Ruiz for Hader along with Gasser. So that even they're not afraid to get a prospect and then just flip him and then bring in Contreras. And I believe they got pay amps in that deal too.
Yep.
Who's important.
So they made out like bandits, right?
They do these trades. I mean, they trade Burns and they get DL Hall, Joey Ortiz, and a comp pick, a high comp pick. So, I mean, they are very shrewd when it comes to trading. I mean, they take advantage of other small market teams like the Willie Adames trade.
And willing to do it, in the sense of sometimes you've got to give to get, and take some calculated risks on people you've identified. That's part of the problem here, I think, too.
I mean, they traded Drew Rasmussen and JP Fireisen to
injury riddled pitchers
to the Rays for Willie Adames and Trevor Richards. That's the full trade.
Richards is gone.
They've had Willie Adames, easily a top 5 shortstop in the National League, at least. Let's be generous, because there's a lot of good shortstops out there.
Yeah.
But the dude has been an absolute beast. They've run his arbitration all the way out. This is his last year of team control. They're going to let him walk and take the comp pick. You can't even argue with them. They're going to replace them in seconds.
Mm-mm.
They've got prospects ready.
And they'll get rid of Williams.
Yeah, they extended Churios for 10 years before he even debuted.
Yeah.
And look, in a normal year, that's a Rookie of the Year candidate, right? He's not even in the conversation this year.
This is part of that risk-averse thing that seems to show up more often than we would like.
Right.
Talking about the Pirates, which is, okay, the Brewers aren't the Yankees or the Dodgers. They've taken some risks, and you don't go out and try to do it foolishly, but man, you think you got something, then yeah, maybe you do take that step.
It's frightening, man, because the payroll 115. I mean, these aren't Ethan numbers, so take them for what they are. But 115. All right. So the Pirates are like roughly 89 right now or something. They'll be up over 100 next year. And the Brewers will probably fall back a little bit because they won't have the Willy Adames money on there. That's $12.5 million this year. You know, Rhys Hoskins is going to get another 12 because, again, I think he's going to stay. Devin Williams is another guy, Jim, they might think about trading. He's heading into his last year. Look what they just did without him. I mean, and they're a smart team. They trade those closers before they just let them walk. They don't extend them. Look what they did with Hader. They'll do the same thing, I think, with Devin Williams.
Yep.
Yeah, Devin Williams has looked since he's been back, has looked like his dominant self. So, yeah, I mean, sell high on him too if you want.
Yeah. And, you know, like if they really want him, they can keep Aaron Savali around to keep kicking the Pirates' ass next year. It's the only team he does well against.
Yep. Just watched it.
What'd you say that was? 115 for the Brewers and 22. That's Yelich. So,
yeah,
93 without Yelich.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I think you're looking at a team that's just really well built with young players. You know what the Milwaukee Brewers have done? They have done what countless teams claim they want to do. They've replicated what the Rays do. They build pitching. They have a conveyor belt of prospects. They don't get attached if it doesn't make sense. They move on. They know they can afford to have a big contract or two. They do it. You know, if they need to go up, they could. I mean, you could see them really invest next year. We've seen them go as high as 150. But when they lost their TV contract, this is what they did. Remember, they made some painful deals. You know, like they didn't want to trade Corbin Burns.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was reading something today on MLB.com. They've got 4 prospects in the top 75. I mean, there's not many teams that have that. Gasser was their number 5. And he's 2-0 and 5 starts. And I mean, it's
crazy.
Well,
they're
a problem. They're a problem.
Well, that's where teams, like, in a way, they kind of did what the Diamondbacks did the year before. And they, at the last couple years, with some of the real kind of shrewd moves that they made and turned things into something for them. So, you know, my hesitation is it seems like the Pirates at this point really do need to start, like, not being so risk averse, right? You've got to just take another step, even if it doesn't work. Try to make those types of moves to get to the next level instead of just saying, like, nope, I think we'll be okay. We'll just kind of trust the process. And I don't think you can do it. I don't think you can do it if you truly ever want to get where you want to go.
Michael from 412 Double Play Podcast checks in. He says, guest manager council heading to Chicago didn't impact their success as much as everyone thought. Oh man, what a shame that is, actually, that it didn't work out. I was really hoping that he would reset the market for major league managers. The last thing I want to do is start talking about the salaries of managers in baseball. There's enough salary crap going around. It's the last thing I want to hear.
Well, doesn't it prove the point on both ends too? Like, hey, just because you go out and get that big name doesn't guarantee you anything. And secondly, Brewers are doing just fine without him. So it's like, you know, if you want to get into, again, it comes down to, do you trust Bob Nutting and his minions to make the right calls to get another guy in here? I don't know.
So, I mean,
probably not.
I think, like, there's a vision there that the Brewers kind of started executing with their previous GM, because they have an overall culture that comes from their owner. That's why it transcends general managers. That's why the guy that shepherded Arnold along was a great general manager too. And they didn't do things exactly the same way, but they have an ownership that supports them. And they have an ownership that knows some years a really good team is going to take $140 million. And some years a really good team can be done for $85. And, it really kind of depends on what stage you're in, and he's willing to understand that and let it go. And maybe not make quite as much money. I don't know what else to say. I have mad respect for the Brewers. I really do. I don't hate teams that are run well. I certainly don't hate teams that aren't spending 5 times as much as me that are kicking my butt. I've got mad respect for them. I really do. I watched them, and I didn't like Rhys Hoskins. I thought it was a dumb signing for them. I still think it was a dumb signing for them. I also knew they'd get away with it. If you're a fan of the Brewers, that's kind of where you are. Anything they try, they've got enough credibility that you're like, let's see. Like they start Bryce Terang at second base, you're probably like, man, where's the power going to come from? Let it play out. Just trust them. Brewers know what they're doing. Like that, for real.
No, that's the longer leash part of it, right? And hey, maybe Hoskins does something in the postseason to even justify it somewhat. He's been in those situations before.
Right.
So I just think that my overall look, I don't expect Sherrington to be gone. I think Shelton could be gone. I think Haynes will be gone. I don't feel that same sense of doom that everybody had in 2019, where it felt like it was all but it was going to happen. Like things had gotten so bad. I don't necessarily think the Pirates think of it that way.
I think they'll be better next year, regardless of what they do. I just think that for me, there's a restriction plate named Derek Shelton and his staff. And I think they're only going to get so far down the road with this management team. That's all. I think they were starter managers. I think it's time to replace them with some professionals. Come in that can actually do the job. Instill a little bit of discipline. Push some envelopes that need pushed. Get some attention from some people that need to give their attention.
Well, I think you got to raise the standard of expectations on a daily level.
And I think they need somebody again to push back on this general manager. If he's going to stay, this cannot be a weak-willed individual in that dugout. And Travis Williams needs to make sure that that's not the case.
Playoffs next season.
Or yeah. I mean, then all bets are off. You're right. But why do they get one more year, James? Because you thought it was going to be 2025 anyway? Mm-hmm. No, listen, in all sincerity, we've been talking about this for 4 years, brother.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't like something new that like James just came up with, but
yeah, you've always said that.
I said they would flirt with a wild card in 500 this year and then compete next season. They faded a little bit earlier than I thought, but they were right there. And then it just fell off the edge. But I believe next season, with some small, important additions, that this is a playoff team next season. A full season of Skeens. Hopefully.
I agree. Yeah.
Hold on. This is me getting my pencil out and putting James down.
You don't have to. It's on video.
But yeah, I'm not James. I'm not a tech guy like you, buddy. I'm writing it down.
Yeah. So what does everybody say when you say that, though? They go, "Oh, it's always next year." Well, yeah, it is.
I'm tired of hearing about year 5. I mean, like 2020 didn't exist. Like the minors weren't shut down for a season. No development for a season. I mean, next year's year 5 to me. And so.
I'm actually not that far from you. I mean, if nothing else, I'm patient enough to wait for it. I know that's going to happen. I think like my argument all along has kind of been, yeah, this is how long I think it's going to take if they try to do it the cheapest possible way. And that's what they're chosen to do very clearly, the cheapest possible way, because I think minimal investment this year, they probably have it.
But
you know,
I mean,
and I don't think it was possible before this year.
and the next couple of seasons, if they keep the roster the way it is, this is a 150 and higher team in just a couple seasons quickly with all these players hitting ARB. And I mean, it's going to escalate quickly if they keep them all, which is, it's going to be important to see who they trade and who they keep over the next couple seasons, because they're not going to keep them all. They can't.
Hey, Gary, I want you to put up what Bubba just said, because I want to address this. Okay. Look, you can say whatever you want about Bob Nutting, and it's probably true. Okay. He's cheap. He doesn't want to spend the money. But I'm tired of hearing the whole players don't care. It's their livelihood. Okay. They may stink at it, and the management above them may stink at it, but it is their livelihood. So I think to go out there, and I watched a guy today named Leover Peguero, who's playing because he cares, and he's trying to stay on a major league roster. Mistakes or poor performance doesn't mean you don't care. And Bob Nutting is a problem, absolutely. But to suggest that the people, Derek Shelton cares, he just happens to probably not be very good at what he does. So I think we need to stop confusing the two things.
Yeah.
Okay. And Bubba, I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just saying that there's a difference. And when it comes to guys that are playing for their livelihoods, I think that that's a mischaracterization of what you are witnessing.
Yeah. I mean, and Bill here says, you know, the scab is still raw and they're already pitching FanFest in January. Talk about ballsy. Yeah, I mean, they have the Pirates audience right now in a captive way. They're going to promote it. Sorry. And
I think that's the day after my birthday.
The place will be jam-packed again, too.
Yeah, we got a weird, I don't know if you guys got it, the weird email about how passionate you are as a Pirate fan and all this stuff the same day as the Rowdy thing. I'm like, oh boy, here we go again, Pirates. You just space some things out, fellas. Come on, get a calendar.
Bubba's clarifying here. He meant the organization, not the players, although Cruz didn't seem too at it today.
Hey, absolutely.
Not wrong, yeah.
You know what? Absolutely. Cruz, those types of things, they got to stop. Absolutely. So,
they got to stop being accepted. And at 25 years old, you got to stop pretending that there's something he's going to grow out of. You're not going to grow out of it at 25 years old. It's time to start getting told it's time to grow out of it. You know,
lock in, big fella. It's time.
At some point, you got to take the kid's keys away and make him find a place to sleep.
It used to be, it didn't matter who it was. Somebody made a mistake like that, and they were right on the pine. And with somebody in their face, but with these kids nowadays, that's just not the way they do it anymore, it seems.
Sometimes I think that's Shelton's biggest problem is too, which is sometimes you have to let that ass meet that pine, right? You have to do it every once in a while. And sometimes you have to do it with some of your good players.
Let's make this the last subject here. David Pratt says Pirates have 27th ranked Fangraphs WAR offense. I don't care about WAR all that much. Competing next year, the group, 30 million free agent. Need improvements is unreasonable. I wish I had your optimism. Okay. Did I say 30 million sometime during this show? Maybe I did. Maybe I wrote it or something. I don't even remember.
I don't know.
I think you wrote something with that. Somewhere around that number.
It's probably somewhere around there where I think they could spend probably 30, 35 million. I mean, they could spend more, but that's where I think they will spend. I'd ask you, and I'm asking you guys, because this is what I want to finish with. In many ways, this season, the Pirates kind of like came up to the edge of a train tunnel. And you got to make the decision to either head into the tunnel or try to go around it if you're not sure there's not a train coming, right? Every rebuild gets to this point. And so what they did is they headed into the tunnel with these kids. And they expected some of these kids to perform a little bit better than they did. And some of them performed better than any of us ever could have expected, like Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, that type. but they didn't get enough from the offense, and they didn't get enough from the veteran offense either. So they just didn't get enough. But they're already in the tunnel now. The train's coming. Now you just got to see if you can get out the other side before that thing comes and smacks you. So that's where they are.
You're not going to
be able to change the plan now. You're talking about like 35, 40 million. Where? Look at the diamond. Look at the players that are here. Where's it going? If you move Reynolds to first base, let's pretend that happens. Where are you spending this money? Left field, right field? Is that 35 million?
Santander gets you a little bit there.
You getting any pitchers? Probably not. Maybe relievers.
Yeah, relievers.
30 million going to get you a far cry when you think your team is there. They're not replacing Brian Hayes. They've got plenty of people to try to play shortstop, at least to pretend to. Second base, they're going to at least say is filled. If they move Brian Reynolds, they'll call first base done and have Billy Cook as a happy backup, right? I do think they'll cut ties with guys like Connor Joe, and certain people will have to start in the minors, like maybe Triolo, maybe Cook, maybe Piguero. Who knows? They'll make some moves, but De La Cruz is coming back. He is.
Yeah.
Sawinski ain't dead. He's not.
Also, just to be frank, the things I talk about, and Gary, we've had this conversation before. Sometimes the things I talk about that they should do, it doesn't mean I believe they're going to do it. It's just, that goes for other parts of this conversation, which is you can sit there and say what you think they should do. Doesn't mean you think they're always going to do it and follow that through.
But they're in the tunnel. I'm asking you what you would want to do, though. This is not a conversation for that. This is what would you do? You're in the tunnel. Where are you spending this money?
I would certainly,
about it, but where?
I would certainly spend it on a right fielder if possible, and I would go to the bullpen right now.
Yeah.
It's like whatever is allocated for the whole Rowdy Tellez, Chapman bucket that they spent from last year, that's where I would send it. Those two areas.
Agreed.
Then you're gonna get forced to have Kutch back. It doesn't matter who the GM, that's gonna happen. So there's $5 million. He's coming back. He hit you 20 home runs this year. You probably shouldn't complain. But I just keep wondering where the money's coming, because they went into the tunnel. They're in there now. You have to jettison players now to sign more to fill spots. That's all there is to it. So it's decision time. If you're ready to say Jack Sawinski is done,
yeah.
I'm not sure they are, but that's the decision has to be made.
Yeah.
If you're going to sign a bunch of guys and spend $40 million, he's not going to have a place on this team. Brian De La Cruz won't either. Connor Joe won't. You're going to have to make decisions like that. One of them, Billy Cook, you're probably not good enough. We don't need another bench guy. Go sit in the minors. I know you're already 27. You might be 30 next time we see you.
Hey, he's almost in the younger player category that Palacios is in at that point.
Exactly.
Wink, wink.
The point is, I want to spend money too, but just when I look at the roster and what they need, it's going to go up, but it's going to go up a little bit naturally. And I think they're going to add 25, 30 million and call it a day.
Well, they're
going to run this back.
What was it last year with who was it? With Chapman, Tellez,
35 million.
Taylor,
Grandal.
35 million.
Yeah. So first of all, you need to hit a little bit more on that stuff, whatever it is you're going to spend. And maybe instead of trying to get 4, hey, how about 2?
That are one or two good ones
that are more certainties. So you're talking about money that needs to be spent. Well, spend it better.
Yeah, go get something that's big and going to actually fix something.
Quality over quantity this offseason.
Exactly. I think it's time for that sort of thing. I don't trust I don't trust you're going to get quality without length, though, Jim. That's a hurdle that I think we're going to have to see if they're willing to do. IKF for an extra year was nice. I was kind of pleasantly surprised that they actively traded for a guy that was already under control next year, like we've been telling them to do for 4 years. So maybe this is the year where they'll actually listen and bring in somebody that can actually competently fill a hole at the major league level. If they don't do that, Jim, I'm looking again. I'm just looking. I don't see it. See it. I see them going out and spending $10 million on another Chapman type. I see them overspending in the bullpen.
I think the Chapman conversation is really interesting, and I'm sure we'll be getting to that at some point because, boy, they have a decision to make there, especially with the bullpen and some of the questions.
Right. Well, I mean, this has been a great episode, Jim. I've had a fun time talking about all of this painful stuff. We have one more series. I figure next time we do a show, buckle up because we ought to have a pretty good feeling as to whether they're moving on or not.
It'll be a post-mortem of either the season or maybe post-mortem of individuals. Who knows?
Adam Yarkovsky, the Brian Reynolds prognosticator, just jumped on as the show's ending. So, sorry, we didn't hold off for you, but
my buddy Ark.
I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting off season. We're definitely going to have a lot to discuss. I kind of want the chaos of a regime change, but I also kind of think we're going to have the same result next year, one way or another. I want the coaching changed one way or another. To me, that's more important than the GM at this point.
I would tend to agree with you. I think that there's going to be the temptation to give Sherrington one more year. That doesn't mean you have to give everybody one more year.
Yep. And James, just so it's as painful as possible, I hope West Virginia wins every game the rest of the season.
Yeah, buddy. Man.
I just want to beat Colorado. That's all I care about.
Definitely.
Oh, Coach Prime on the schedule this week, huh?
No, I don't think it's. I don't think it's this week, but they're on the schedule. But I cannot.
I hope they take him down, man, because I think the bloom is off the rose big time with Coach Prime. Everybody really loved the act the first year, and then the second year when he cut everybody again, it was kind of like, this isn't what you're supposed to do.
a lot of sizzle, not a lot of steak so far. And
when does it become the coach? When's it become the coach's fault?
Probably when his son graduates. Probably when his son graduates and he goes back to TV.
Yep. And hey, David, I saw your comment. Said this is your first time on here with us doing this live, and we appreciate that. So.
Oh yeah, hey, welcome in, David. Good stuff. I didn't even know that, and I called you out earlier. So it's not even a fake. It's not even a fake and placating thing.
Now, don't you feel like a jerk, Gary?
I always feel like a jerk, but that's what happens when you go to 30-some Pirates games in a season.
It's inevitable.
Anyways, good stuff, everybody. And James, it's always fun having you on.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
And let's go Bucks. Let's see if we can get through the pain, and go Paul. Get that Rookie of the Year locked up, because if so, absolutely. Jim and I got some big guests planned. All right. See everybody. Let's turn it to our friend Ben.
Let's go Bucks.
Yeah, buddy.